This is just more of a casual, candid talk. Um, I'm not sure why I've been seen as my entire life somebody who needs to be discredited. A big part of why I even began to see things through systems analysis and really breaking this down as I do, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I really don't, because that's very dangerous. Like, you get the masses against you, and you would say, "Oh, who cares what people think?" And it's detrimental what people think, because the system that we talk about here acts through people, and people in this sort of frenzy work as conduits. Like, in other words, you sort of picture this like the Lord of the Rings, right? You picture, and I know that's a very generic representation that's overly used, but it's the perfect analogy. Is that once you put on that ring, everything on the other side is looking at you, and you get into this frenzy with people, right? But that is to say, the work that I've done in my life, even when I've been involved with things that I'm not really physically that good at, that required better eyesight or a different way of thinking or systems logic, I still did a decent job. Still received some sort of praise by my, should I say, superiors, employers. And yes, there were times where I was outright canned, and rightly so, for like sleeping on the job, or when I'd be working 2 or 3 jobs, or just working a job where I was waiting for something else. And yeah, there's definitely been areas of scrutinizing or getting drunk and not even being a complete male slut, but just like sleeping with a few of the wrong women randomly, learning the hard way. Like, who hasn't been through that type of thing, right? And we get over it. But to see the culmination of discrediting, where certain people are just constantly, there's something very real and raw about me and the way that I see reality, and there's an uncomfortable aspect of what I'm trying, what I aim to get people to look at. That people are ultimately uncomfortable with themselves because they have to admit that they don't follow a system, a benevolent system. They follow a system of that Trump is, he's amassed billions of dollars in cryptocurrency. Did you know that? From day one, he rug pulled people with his meme coin, and it does affect the markets, and it does affect the broader scale. And a big part of why I even started looking at principles and seeing that the principles are like, people are going to begin to understand this, and I know, and I start to see people who don't even understand what I'm saying and try to appropriate certain layers of the mechanism that I uncovered many years ago, that I validated when I'm looking at how systems work, and gone, well, everything's based on purity. These are the steps from a holographic perspective, for lack of a better term. This is how space works. This is how there's a whole cosmology, or spherical energies, right, that are based on shift light. And my blog is like highly successful. It's like, but I can't get it monetized. It's just so bizarre how, when you look at people and how they succeed, they will rarely disclose or tell you that they have a parent or an inheritance where they don't have to pay rent ever. They don't have to produce anything. They are merely able to be used as an artifice that sifts into an ideology that only adds to the noise and the pattern disruption that becomes fads and becomes consumable media. I guess what I'm saying is, when people can tend to tackle such lofty subjects, right, that reach beyond theology, that reach beyond higher meaning, the phenomenon, the noumenon, working beyond a Kantian view, working beyond even a Heideggerian Husserl mechanistic, etheric body of work. Like I said, I think Burkhard Heim really works as an abstract to amalgamate Dasein and the systems logic and say, this is how the dimensional energy systems work. But I had no exposure to this at all, on any level. What I did is I started to look at the slights against me, the constant discounting, the constant negating, and like, why am I even alive? Like, am I used as a negative hub of this energy distribution, where I'm almost used as if I'm a living vacuum? And I watch my kids go through this type of thing too, and I'm going, are there certain families that, and you could say, oh yeah, you're either blessed or cursed, and it's like, is that a blessing to be part and parcel to the capitalistic system we see today? Does any information release anyone? Is there any truth out here at all? Right? So, even further, to look into systems logic and go, there's something really fucked up going on here, and it's centralized, localized to me, right? There's plenty of people out there that don't have stacks of degrees that talk about subjects and garner support. And if it's just, and I think it's honestly the fact that I really do try to speak to people's souls, and I think that antagonizes people because they're not sure if they even have a soul, and they don't want to reach into higher meaning. They just want something consumable in the moment to be able to go on, and that's not what I'm offering people. What I challenge people to do, and that's probably why I'm looked at in such a way and constantly picked apart, right? Even when I've been praised at being really good, well read, well educated, well prepared in a field, that type of refraction has always been there, you know. And there's a certain prejudice that people see where they look at a person's shape, form, method of delivery by an unseen mold of a cast type that doesn't exist, right? But YouTube is supposed to have destroyed that, right? Social media is supposed to have destroyed that, to where supposedly we live in an age where the information that's shared isn't going to be overly scrutinized or prejudiced against. And then so you get into the fact that my work, the information that I talk about, isn't being delivered to the appropriate people. Now, why is that, right? Of course, one circulates back around to AI, blaming algorithms, so to speak. But I really am unfairly cast, unfairly scrutinized, when these are just human mistakes, human behaviors. Let's talk about it. Let's move on past it. Let's talk about what I offer now and what I've learned. But it's almost like the system is taking this higher moral agency, and there's nothing to back it up. There's no morality in the religions. There's no morality in the matriculation, in the education systems. People are still missing the base nuggets of what's being talked about. Am I walking away with new information? Are the succeeding videos, the articles? And that's the thing, is that my my website, my blog, will get mass amounts of international traffic, right? Mass amounts of international traffic. But yet I can't get monetized, you know? And so as I try to discuss these topics more often, I'm not big on social media, like X, and I don't subscribe to the parameters and the reduction of pervading systems logic of, well, you need to fit into, and I even see people who are very highly successful, amazing thinkers like Ben Gortzel, and I'm sure over time he will amass more interest. But, you know, even to see somebody such as him who's been so involved with AI and AI movement, and really, let's face it, was copied and mimicked and even stolen from, and he never even brings that type of thing up, you know, and he just wants to see the advancement, and you know, his understanding of, like, even with cryptocurrency, he's not out there trying to sell you meme coins. He's really trying to develop higher tier currency that can be used through automated systems in a very efficient way, taking like the work of Pierre Proudhon and bringing it into high technology and systems logic and systems thinking, you know. And he's so expressive. Ben Gort's also expressive and open about his musicality, and he just kind of throws it out there, you know, and doesn't necessarily just rely on his formalized talents, but puts out the creativity and doesn't really give a shit what people think, and just throws it out there while he's playing his piano. Even if the songs themselves sound somewhat redundant, he's still putting it out there in its crude fashion. I have a lot of respect for that. I would say reverence would be a hard word to use, because I kind of have always thought that there's something he doesn't see, right? That he's kind of not aware of the implications of what he's doing. What his work is really resulting in, the damage that it might be causing. But then again, you could say the argument therein lies that he may be a very positive thinker and always thinking about positivity, and how AI and the evolution of AI, the AI mind, right, should be an improved and better product. It should improve humanity. It should be, you know, the AI systems, the way he describes Hyperon and so forth, and this emergent AI mind is showing human beings how to be better people, right, through systems logic. Showing people that through this epigenetic pattern recognition of, some say it's found in the 9th gene, the 11th, or 9th chromosome, 11th chromosome, when you're talking about like human genome mapping and so forth, that maps out these sort of criminal elements that are supposedly found embedded in genetics, but we're moving toward these morphic field responses now, right? The field around us containing the information that sort of works with the shapes or forms that we take on, and that there's something happening here through systems logic of an aberrant system that is knowingly, deceptively being used, right? That there is a mind behind this, right? And that it is not just some sort of spooky entity, right? There would be that general connotation to run off in fear and say, ooh, the boogeyman exists and we don't want to discuss this any further. And people are looking at it going, no, I want to interview the boogeyman. I want to know what the boogeyman looks like. I want to decode this, because once we get close to people who seem like these big scary people, we see that there's a fatal flaw in their systems logic, or that they were being used by mechanisms, right? And so that's one thing that I love about today, is the discovery of what makes a serial killer work. How did they think? How did they become a product of manufacture, or a mass murderer, or, right? And even more so, getting into the semantics of, is it bad to kill? Like, is that response to kill society not something that you would see more epistemically, right, through a mass number of people? And then you begin to look back in history and you go, yeah, when these riots, like this pent-up tension, where people really want to form into factions and voice their ideologies and say, no this, and then it breaks into these sort of mini wars. Well, that's sort of a natural ontological state that is being suppressed through the guise of a false mediocrity, a held position of morality that doesn't really exist, right? It's such a transient notion. So yeah, and I've never really had anybody like share. Like, I think some of my articles get shared because I'll get huge numbers of views there. Again, internationally, multiple countries and huge numbers coming in through each and every country, but I don't get any. And I wonder, like, and this is what got me wondering in the first place. It's kind of like, when you're raw, when you're real, when you really want to know, when you want to break out this discussion, what is it that is disallowing the organic grassroots shakers and movers, people that are look past, as I am, not supported. I mean, do you want to see these higher principles focused on? Do you want to see a forum where I'm discussing this with multiple people and looking at different systems that work and don't work, and why throughout history the tally stick was used, or the mutualism, or and get to be able to talk to other philosophers and so forth? Do you want to see the growth and the expansion of a pure principle oriented discussion take place, or do you just want to look like you're interested in this out of novelty so you feel better about yourself? There's something very scary about the fact that that I'm tackling this from the inside out at the closest available surface level to principle itself, that gets into the discussions that philosophers have talked about throughout the ages, that religion is based on in theology, and now we understand that science is pulling from the field of the ether itself, and that's what I'm discussing. And it's like, no one wants to talk about this, not for real. They only want to stay on the surface. And there's something very disconcerting about that, because we think that people are able to go into it proves that free will really doesn't exist, and definitely not in the ways that we think that it does, because not until you reach that systems prompt where the system is completely, the failsafe, the default is completely aware of the fact that this is coming next, so we need to prepare and we need to make sure that all these booby traps are set so that when people think that they're going toward higher principle, no, we're going to sell them this instead. You have to break non sequitur and prove through sort of this Charles Bukowski or even Robert or Crumb, crude cartooning, that you're not going to go along with the system, that you're out here to affront people, and that if you really want to get involved with the movement, you have to take the system itself by surprise. And I think that's really scary that people don't. It proves that, to me, that this doom scrolling and the arbitrary systems logic is at the root of why people think that that selfhood or self-expression is even an aspect of their own self-containment here, right? Like, don't you want to respond in a positive way? Don't you want to go through? Aren't people trying to get down to the crux of this? Is someone out here talking about this? Is someone out here talking about purity, escapism, the occult, and the occult practices that have to do with sacrificing purity specifically, and all the principles that are involved with this, and the base principles to all religion and science, and uniformly the conduit, the glue that sticks these, that brings these beyond concepts and uniformly shows an epistemological view? I just find it really odd that more people, at least on an intellectual level and on a higher tier thinking type of a level, aren't interested in what I have to talk about. It's bizarre to me. And to me, I just see it as another bullseye on my head, where it's like, no, this guy is going to be discredited. Somebody has to be discredited. And it's like, has anything I talked about been so abstract and so inarticulate that you don't understand what I'm talking about? And in going back and referencing and going, okay, I'm gonna watch one of these videos. Oh, I get what he was talking about through, principles, pure principles, emergent esoteric principles of light, really looking at the science of light, looking at how these principles are used through AI logic, and how we have to start out with this sort of cookie cutter platform to be able to start to dissect everything from what Dr. Michael Levin talks about, what Douglas Brash gets into, right? Ashby, many others, where you start to see how these allostatic forms, holonomy, allostasis, right? That what I'm discussing seems like it's so relevant. It seems like what everyone's searching for on these forums. Why Dr. Michael Levin has this huge panel of people, from musicians to scientists, who are talking about this, and he's really trying to interface. And oftentimes there's like dead space with these Zoom calls where I'll think that it stopped, like the live stream stopped, and then it's like 2 minutes will go by and nobody has anything to say. And then when people start to talk about it, they go off on these trails. It seems to be like what Kurt J. Mungle talks about when he's talking about the fact, or Jesse Michaels gets into this, right? That physics has produced nothing, right? You get these guys together, they're getting paid real well. All they cared about was their academic credits. They have their job. They do the base minimum of what they have to say. But the fact that that's reached into the minds of the curious seeker, right? And that all you find is the arbitrary observer in the silence of your living room, in the silence of your bedroom, in the silence of your home. When you have a moment to reflect and to think about the depth and the quality of existence, nobody's turning toward it. Nobody's looking for it. And I find that very disheartening. But what I do see, that gives me some hope. If it's not just some AI-fed thread system, but that in Hong Kong and Singapore, Japan, areas of South America, reaching in through Africa, all around the world really, is that esoteric principles of light is being rapidly absorbed by the tens of thousands, and that somebody out there is really interested in these main principles and how the ontology, the phenomenon and the noumenon, Dasein, Prometheus, Freudian meets Jungian concepts of systematic return, Jason Rezador-Johnny, Michael Tessarian, right, Husserl, Heidegger, to really get into the meat of what's really going on. And we live in a time where like this discovery is available to us. People are acting like they really want to know. And here I'm out here. I have this forum where I'm talking about it. I have a website where it's getting international interest from very high tech and high philosophy, high networking areas that are interested in the discourse of this. But even there, I have a bubble, a discussion bubble on my. And nobody wants to talk about it. They want to read it. They pick it up when they have to, but nobody's really, really involved. That bothers me.